All right, More Than Commas family, we have a fun one today. We are getting into a Dave Ramsey video, one that I found some time ago. I sent it over to Marla, and she set it aside for me. We're joined today by Lance Chisum, one of our newest advisors, been with us a couple, 3 months now. He's going to have a little bit of commentary. He's had a chance to rewatch this video. I don't think I've seen it in some time. I can't remember what it's about. But we're going to dig into it, and you're going to get my fresh reaction because I don't remember how this sorted out.
Brought to you by the Every Dollar app. Start budgeting for free today.
So I just finalized a divorce, and I owe her $150,000, which is her half of the equity of the house. And I have $70,000 saved up, and it looks like a HELOC might be the only way I can go because I owe her the rest of the money by the end of August, basically. So I know I'm a little bit behind, but we had kind of made plans to make payments up until the end of the divorce. So she changed it over and said that she wanted to buy a house. So yeah, I was just wondering if there's any other options other than HELOC.
Okay, what's the balance on the first mortgage?
110.
What's the value of the home?
About 430, 440.
What's the interest rate on the first?
All right, so let's hold right there, Lance. We've got a home worth 450,
430.
430, and they owe 110.
Yep.
So we've got only about a 30% loan, less than a 30% loan to value. Plenty of room to be able to take out a HELOC of this size where you'd be like whatever the normal HELOC interest rates are, nothing to penalize us, right?
Right.
Okay. Let's see.
2.25.
Okay.
That's low.
So you would borrow,
Best in
you'd
the
borrow
country.
80 on a HELOC, and you make what?
130.
Okay. All right, so I don't tell people to borrow money, but you're already in debt.
Low interest mortgage, good income for how low this mortgage is likely to be. It's probably not very old, so it hasn't amortized that long. If it was below, what do you say it was? 2.25. So the thing is that could be either a 30-year that he bought down at low interest rates, or he's got a 15-year. I don't think he specified, did he?
He did not know.
No. So we've got a fair
We
amount
also
of
don't know how
equity.
much he bought it for, right?
Right.
Could have
Right.
been
So
300,
we're-
could have been 400. Who knows?
But we have plenty of equity to be able to do the HELOC. We can see that. And we've got a super low interest first mortgage that we definitely don't want to get rid of on a home that's worth a lot more at an income range that this is, even at a 15-year mortgage, is not hurting his debt to income ratio at all to have a HELOC. Okay, let's keep going.
You're in debt to your ex-wife, and we're going to change that to another kind of debt called a HELOC. And so you're not borrowing money, you're changing the money. You're changing the type of debt. You follow me?
Yep.
And so, yeah.
So I want to pause there for a second. So we are changing the type of debt. Now, I want to tell you, I love that Ramsey is saying this because it's long been that people have debt that needs to be moved around. And I think oftentimes people can take a no debt stance and not make good use of redeploying debt.
Now that's what I would do. The only other thing I could think of, Jacob, is why are you keeping the house?
It's in a great school district for my kids, and
Are you keeping the kids?
I love the house. Well, we're doing 50-50, but yeah, I want to keep them in the school district and just want to keep, them from having to move back and forth.
That's a super reasonable reason to want to stay in the house, I got to say.
However.
Yes. Is there more coming? I'm missing?
There's more coming, yeah.
Okay.
One's 4.5 and one is like 5 months.
Neither
They're
one
not
of
in
them
school
care.
yet.
You're the only one that
Yeah.
cares.
He's so
All right. Dave
totally
nailed
right.
it. Oh my gosh. 5 months old and 4.5, which I got to say in this case, Dave, just talk about a quick hold. Now, I think he delivers it a little rough. I think you can hold up the mirror much more gently for somebody. He could have said, wait a second. Why would it matter at those ages? They've never been to school yet, and they won't remember. There's something else there for you. I think that could be a little better come alongside, but Dave did
Well,
definitely.
Yeah, he could have also said, right, so there's less of you. You can downsize, maybe stay in the same area, use that equity to buy a new place. That's smaller.
Indeed.
Well, I also don't think I can sell a house and get the money in time.
Is the divorce final?
Yes. It's finalized, and then I just made sure that I could get the loan. So, and then as I'm going through it, I'm like, I just decided to call you guys and just see if there's any other options that I could look into.
You're under a time crunch, but here's what I would do. I wouldn't just go, well, I'm just going to stay in the house forever. What you could do is do the HELOC, then list the house. When it sells, you immediately pay off the HELOC and take whatever's left as your new down payment.
Yeah.
Now, that's where I would disagree a little bit. And you all have heard us talk about this on the show before. He said, take whatever you're left with and do what? Make it your new down payment. But your new down payment may not be a good idea, because then we had some amount of money that could have been sitting outside of home equity, growing somewhere on our balance sheet. Our goal is not to keep our house leveraged forever, but to, when we pay it off, let's write one check.
Yeah.
And that way we keep our balance sheet as healthy as possible on the way to paying off the home and being a new, maybe single income household, or he is always been single income household, but now he has support payments. It might be a really good time for him to have liquidity on the side. So this might be the first point of this one that we're differing with Dave in a big way.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You could keep the house if you want, but most of the time in 30 years of financial counseling with folks that they're in this situation, they keep the house for all the wrong reasons. And when you tell me you're keeping a house for a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old, that's the wrong reason. Because they don't care.
Facts.
They truly don't care. You're just being emotional in the middle of this horrible catastrophe called a divorce. And I don't blame you for that, because your heart's broken and you want to try to be a good dad and all that kind of stuff. But you just want to, I'm not sure keeping the house is a smart thing to do. But if you want to get a HELOC just to get her off your back, that's fine. But honestly, where you are 5 years from now should be a completely different world than where you are today. And it probably is going to involve a different house, because your next wife probably doesn't want to live in the house where your ex-wife used to live.
Wow. I think there might be something to that.
Yeah. Truth bomb there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that could be that your later spouse could say that. I don't disagree. Except usually what people do is very normal, is that people continue to own a home and then they choose to own a new home together. And being freshly divorced, depending on whether, it may be important for somebody to stay single for a while and recollect themselves. But it is, I think that regardless of which house they get, if they're meeting somebody of similar socioeconomic circumstance for their next marriage, then there's probably going to be a home that has to be dealt with no matter what on the other spouses or this side. But it is a unique gut check. If you were keeping a hold of the house for emotional reasons, it's a very good emotional reason to bring against it, to say that it just may not be a good reason. It may not be a good idea to make an emotional decision anyway. So what I like about what Dave said is we could cancel out another emotional decision with it.
Yeah,
in the same
bedroom.
bedroom.
On the video here too.
Oh, say that again.
That's pretty much it on the video there at the end.
So just doubt it. I just doubt it. That's just humans. Been dealing with them a long time.
Yeah, it helps to move on in that way, to get rid of the physical
and
place.
You had a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they had friends that were deep, and you've been there for 15 years and a lot of ties in the community. That's fine. But a 5-month-old does not have any feelings except food. And
this episode is brought to you by Sound Financial Group. At Sound Financial, we specialize in helping clients build strong, long-term financial strategies for their retirement. If you're looking for personalized advice to help manage your wealth, Visit us at sfgway.com to learn more about how we can help you achieve your goals.
All right. So there's one other thing that was left out of this, Lance, that I think we have to talk about that is a big, big deal. You had mentioned we don't know what he paid for the property, but there is an exclusion that's $250,000 per person in a married couple. They just finalized their divorce, and usually as a part of that divorce decree, it's going to tell them, are they filing jointly or separately during the tax year of the divorce? So if they are filing jointly, this 1 year, it might be, depending on what they bought the house for, there might be a big gain to get both exclusions so that he can harvest those gains and set them aside rather than just have his only his. But the other benefit would be is if he does relocate, he gets to take the tax-free gain. Let's say it's less than $250,000. It's a smaller price home in the Spokane area is what I would suppose. That's where he was calling from. So your $250,000 may just cover it on his own, but then he can tax harvest, be able to put 20% down on the next home, and then he starts that clock again. So if he does move again to get married or open up space, to your point, Lance, he may be able to downsize a little bit. That if he gets that and has money growing on the side, now he is way further ahead and he's clocking another $250,000 tax-free sale for the maybe potential marriage in the future.
Yeah.
So, really great, some emotional answers. But when Lance and I were talking right before, he said, when I was saying I didn't remember this video, Lance said, I think the biggest problem you're going to have with it is how much advice he gave, knowing so little about the person. Right? He didn't know about the purchase price. He did ask about the interest rate, but not the amortization rate. Didn't ask if he's making any extra payments. No question about whether or not there's spousal support that's in addition to this. Doesn't know how much is in his 401k. Is he maxing out his 401k? Is he using a backdoor Roth? And by the way, do you have enough life insurance to leave your kids now with your ex-spouse with a house that has an additional home equity line of credit?
Yeah.
You're a sole income earner now without a spouse in the household. You've never had disability insurance before. Do you think maybe you should go at open enrollment and participate in your group program? Those are all things that get left off. And I've got to say that even this one was emotionally kind of compelling. You know, the holding up of the mirror about the age of the kids, the idea that your new spouse may not want to be in your old house are all compelling. And it's why the show is so entertaining. But what it leaves out is a lot of, you know, Lance, you worked with a traditional financial advisor for 18 years before joining our firm as a client and an advisor, right? Was it that long? 18 years?
Yeah, 18 or 20. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then think about how much even a traditional advisor, not our kind of more wide lens approach, but even a traditional advisor, how much more they would know about you before they would throw out a recommendation.
Yeah, they would dig in so much more deeply and have a broader view of your whole financial picture and your goals and objectives in life, right? And that's what we miss here. And to your point, right, it is compelling on the surface that it does get that heart reaction, but maybe it's not the right answer. And maybe he even has other assets that we don't even know about. He could go do a security-backed line of credit, get it a lot faster, right? So there's other options that, had we known more, could be available to us.
Well, and he mentioned he had $70,000 in cash, but they didn't ask him, well, do you have anything in a brokerage account?
Yeah.
It could have been, to your point, an asset-backed line of credit would have done the job. Right. So here's what gets missed with, so I'm not even knocking traditional planning in this case. It's just that there isn't enough information for Dave Ramsey to be doing what he's doing. But here's the psychological trick that gets played on all of us. Is that we listen to somebody who does this thing like Dave Ramsey, and then we feel like because we called his show, there's no vested interest that he has. He's totally independent party. He's just telling me the best he can for what I need to have, which we can say now, and I think even Dave would say is objectively true, that he does not deliver that because he just doesn't have enough information. But
and he said it in 30 years of financial counseling, right? It's not financial advising, he's counseling.
So when Dave is saying things like, here's this emotional reason you may want to do that. Here's another reason that you may be making an emotional decision. All those things are really valuable to have insights on. But what gets missed is the practical advice and, most importantly, the aims. When we talked about Lance and his advisor for 20 years working together, he was aware of Lance's family's goals, objectives, dreams, etc. And there was nothing in a part of this. It was like, well, do you want to build a real estate portfolio over time? Or are you thinking you're going to retire in the next 2 years? How much is in your 401k? Because all of that is not there, it's just incomplete advice. And you feel like it's independent. You feel like he doesn't have an interest in it because nobody's writing him a check and there's nobody. And so he's just being as straight as honest as he can be. And he may be being straight and honest, but he's doing it with such limited information. He's not serving you. He's serving you from the standpoint of getting an insight that maybe you take to somebody that does know your dreams, goals, etc., and can help you do some math. But you have to remember what Dave Ramsey, not Dave Ramsey in particular, but anybody with that model, their job is to deliver the eyeballs looking at them. When you call, you are not their customer. And I know that feels like it creates some kind of independence, but it actually creates a deep dependence on people who are watching. So it needs to be that emotional whatever. And it can't possibly be an hour-long conversation that gave this person real advice dealing with their aims and their particular situation. It has to be answered from some sort of financial zealotry on positions that they've posted out. Some of them are amazing for the person's situation. And oftentimes, though, they're applied knowing very little of somebody's situation. So that's, Lance, when I lost my train of thought, that's where I'm going. I'm so glad Marla went ahead and clipped out that part. So for everybody listening, Marla clipped out my brain glitch, or at least I hope she did, because I had lost my role there. But Lance said something that may have got cut out with that I think was key, is that you had mentioned he didn't say he's a financial advisor.
Yeah.
He said what?
Financial counselor for 30 years.
He's a financial counselor, 30 years. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, he's added a ton of value. He has allowed a lot of people that, couldn't know beans from apple butter around money to get themselves minimally competent. As you guys know, those early baby steps we're big fans of. We just think once you start accumulating capital, you have to get off of these rules and move closer to stewardship. So glad all of you could join us today for a little bit of an impromptu episode of an episode I meant to be prepared for, but then I just totally forgot what the video was. So I got to experience it newly with all of you again. Thank you, Lance Chisum, for joining us. For those of you that see him on here, give him a comment below and tell him you're glad he's here. Or you can say, what a beautiful, if you are just listening on YouTube or on the podcast, I would encourage you to go over YouTube, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment below about how great would you just get close to the camera for everybody? Let's get a close up on Lance, this beautiful, silver. I'm getting a little gray on my beard, but Lance, he is made for this video environment. So we'll try to have you back soon.
Take care, all.